was just waiting for the lighting to be good and it just kept on raining, so I have to stand a little bit closer to the window. That's why you can suddenly see so much of my room. But it's all because I need some light to hit my face. Hello everyone, it's me Leonie and welcome to another video. Today I'm gonna do my July reading wrap up. You might be wondering, Leonie, where is your June wrap up? It doesn't exist, just like the books that I finished in June don't exist. I didn't read anything in June. What can I say? The only thing that I can say is for July I do have 7 books to talk about, so let's just quickly get into that. The first book that I read in July was The Final Empire by Sanderson. This is the first book in a fantasy series where the Dark Lord has kind of won the war and he is ruling over the city and suppressing all the slaves, and it is about a bunch of people who are gonna try to overthrow this Lord Ruler, and the two main characters that we follow, Kelsier and Vin, are both Mistborns, which means that when they ingest metal, they can gain certain supernatural abilities. I had quite mixed feelings about this book. There were things that I absolutely loved about the story, and then there were things that kind of disappointed me. I could talk about this a lot, so I made a separate spoiler-free review where I exactly state all the spoiler-free things that I didn't like and the things that I did like. So if you're interested in that, you can watch it there. Is it there? I think it's there. Let's go with there. But in the end, I still enjoyed it. I just really didn't think it was that amazing, and I gave it 3 stars. Then the next book that I read was Circus Mirandas by Cassie Beasley. This is a very cute and quirky fantasy story about a boy named Micah whose grandfather is about to die from an illness. But when his grandfather was a little kid, he used to visit the Circus Mirandas, and one of the illusionists of the circus, called the Lightbender, offered Micah's grandfather a miracle. And now that Micah's grandfather is about to die, Micah sets out to find the Circus Mirandas and find this Lightbender so he can claim the miracle that he promised his grandfather so that he can keep his grandfather alive. The biggest theme of believing in magic is symbolized through this circus, which you can only go to if you believe in magic. What I loved the most about this book were all the different characters. You get to see some people who work at the Circus Mirandas, you follow Micah and his friend, you also jump back in time to when his grandfather was a little kid. My favorite character in this book was Chinsey, who was the messenger, and she was super sassy and hilarious, and she also happened to be a talking parrot. And she will stick with me forever. She was so funny. Because it is a children's story, so of course it never really got very complex or anything. But in the end, I still thought it was really beautiful. If you're looking for just a quirky, heartwarming fantasy story, then I would definitely recommend it, and I gave it 4 stars. And the next book that I read was A Gathering of Shadows by V.E. Schwab. This is the second book in the A Darker Shade of Magic series, which takes place in Red London, which is a parallel version of our own London where magic exists. I had kind of mixed feelings about the first book, but this book completely blew me away. I loved it. Firstly, because it has a very major plot line that revolves around pirates, and I love pirates. And the second thing is because it has a magical tournament, and seriously, every kind of book or movie or anything that has a magical tournament or like a contest or a games of some sort, I love that. This book is also a lot more character driven than the first book in the series, and I totally loved that. I loved it so much that I gave it 5 out of 5 stars. I mean, I could talk to you about how the first half of the book barely had any plot, or how the magical tournament at the end could have been a lot more epic than it was, but to be honest, I really didn't care. This is one of those books where you're just like, I don't really care about its flaws, I just love it, and I'm just gonna love it. I'm just gonna give it 5 stars. It was great. And then the next book that I read was The Book of Lost Things by John Connoly. This is a book about a young boy named David who is still grieving the death of his mother, and in his despair he starts hearing his books whispering to him, that his books start talking to him, and then one day he sees this really creepy, crooked man in his bedroom, and this creepy man tells him that David is the next king, and before he knows it, he finds himself in some kind of other fantasy world where fairy tales exist, and the story is about him trying to survive in this fairy tale country, and he meets all the different characters from all the different fairy tales, but do not be mistaken. These fairy tale characters are not like you know them. They are so dark and twisted and psycho and just completely different from the innocent things of the stories that you know. It definitely did not surprise me when I found out that John Connoly's other books are all horror and thrillers. I definitely loved how creepy but also how magical this book was. The only thing that I didn't really like about this book was that I found it to be quite predictable. I'm not someone that catches on plot twists, but I had already predicted pretty much everything that was gonna happen in the end of the book, so that was kind of a shame. But if you are looking for a book that combines like magic and innocence with just dark, gory creepiness, then this book is absolutely perfect for you. I gave it 4 stars, but beware, your childhood will be ruined. And the next 2 books I read was the 2-volume manga series called The Mad Hatter's A Late Night Tea Party, and this is a spin-off series from the main series Alice in the Country of Hearts. This is the main series. Alice in the Country of Hearts is about Alice who ends up in Wonderland, but all the animals that you know from Alice in Wonderland are humans in this manga series, so she just like meets all of them and talks to them. It's a very character-driven story, but because she talks to all these characters, you can't help yourself but shipping Alice with at least one of these characters. But this series doesn't really have any romance, but that's why there are the spin-off series, because in each spin-off series Alice ends up with another character from the main series, which is a brilliant concept. So I shipped Alice with the Mad Hatter, so naturally what did I do? I bought the spin-off series where Alice ends up with the Mad Hatter. Yeah, these very much disappointed me. When I was reading these mangas, I just didn't even ship Alice anymore with the Mad Hatter because he was so different from the way he was in the main series, because he just was incredibly possessive. He was constantly only saying mean things to Alice. He would constantly make these really gross innuendos, and basically he was just a creep. I also did not like the way the romance was done in this book. I felt like all the romance was based on these awkward innuendos and like borderline sexual harassment. I'm not someone to call something problematic very easily, but this was pretty problematic. Also, half of the plot was just reused from the main series plot, so most of the time I already knew what was gonna happen anyway. So in the end I gave both volumes 1 star, unfortunately. And then the last book that I read this month was A Poison Study by Maria V. Snyder. A little bit of backstory is I actually read this book like 4 years ago when I was 14, and for some reason I never really finished it. But lately this book has been crawling its way into BookTube, and a lot of people have been mentioning this book as a book that they read before they started booktubing, but they really loved the book. So I was like, hey, you know what, maybe I should just pick it up again and see what I think of it now. And I'm really glad that I did, because it was really good. So Poison Study is the story of a girl named Yelena who is convicted for murder, and she is given a choice. Either she will be executed for murder, or she can become the commander's next poison study. And obviously Yelena doesn't want to die, so she becomes the poison taster. And because of that, she just gets caught up in this web of political intrigue. She also slowly finds out that she herself has magical powers. The thing that I loved the most about this book was Yelena herself. She was such a strong character. She carried the story so well, and throughout the novel you also slowly find out more about her past and why she killed the person that she killed. I read this book within 24 hours because it was so fast-paced. I just couldn't stop reading. Only the writing style didn't really click with me because it was a lot of telling instead of showing, but that also contributed to how fast-paced the story was. And in the end I gave it 4 stars, and I would highly recommend it if you haven't picked it up yet. It's very good. And those were all the books that I read in July. I really hope I can keep up this reading speed for the next month. We all know that's not gonna happen. That's probably not gonna happen. But anyway, I will see you soon with another video. Goodbye!